Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Warren Coos, and I'm the High Brass Product Specialist for Buffet Crampon USA. And welcome to today's webcast. Today we're going to be talking really about a lot of things, and hopefully you're able um, to really enjoy a lot of the content that we are able to provide to you today. And you can see I'm still working from home in my what used to be my dining room area, and I am not alone. However, I'm joined by a special guest today. We're going to talk with the obvious choice of a horn player for our discussion on traveling over the course of America and playing the horn and what that means for brass players as well. So today's discussion is on the road with Juan Berrios. So a very special thank you and introduction for our guest today. Say a few words, Juan.
Thanks, Warren. No, I'm excited to have this chat. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be really yeah, it's going to be really exciting, and hopefully a lot of great content and a lot of great advice that we might be able to talk about today. So before I get into the thick of it, because I know everyone wants to jump in, I'll let some people really um, communi- commune in the comments, and as our viewers get all comfy and everything, I'll be checking on a lot of the comments that happen. So be sure if you have any questions or anything like that, be sure to make your questions and topics that you want to talk about or want to have Juan answer in the middle of our live webcast. Be sure to put them there in the comments. Yeah, so a few announcements. Today will be a Thursday session. Going forward, actually, this is part of our Rhapsody Live webcasts, and we will be doing one every week. We've been doing two a week for the past, I want to say, 8 weeks now, which has been really, really fantastic. And as we move a little bit within our company to be more focused on in the office and having a regular schedule again, the we'll be moving to Thursdays only, and creating a lot more individual content, hopefully a lot more focused for you as well. And it will also be housed on a different area. So right now we're on our Hans Hoyer Facebook page. And after that, we'll be housing all of these webcasts on our New York showroom. It's our Buffet Crampon New York showroom Facebook page. So we have a specific site and page designated for that. And we'll be doing it all from there so that you in North America can all commune in the same place. For those of you who are following all of these wonderful webcasts for the past 7 or 8 weeks, it's going to be really great. So, okay, moving forward. Also, at the end, if you've been catching some of these after we've been airing them live, don't be worried. We'll be actually housing all of them on our YouTube channel. We have a Rhapsody Live. If you do search for Buffet Crampon USA, and Rhapsody Live is the actual name of the YouTube channel, you'll find all of our past videos there that you can catch up on your favorite topics, artists, or content that you want to really dive into. And feel free to make some comments there. We'll be sure to get back to you as we have been live here on the stage here, so to speak. So yeah, okay. I'm gonna stop talking and really get into the content. Thank you so much, Juan, for joining us today.
Of course.
So yeah, how are you? Tell us about a few things from your perspective. How did you get started playing the horn? And yeah, I'll just let you talk for a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, I'll give you my story in a nutshell. I was born in Puerto Rico, and I lived there till I was about 9 years old. Um, then my family moved us to Central Florida, just south of Orlando, a town called Kissimmee, Florida. Um, and that's kind of where I lived up until this past summer before I moved to Kansas City. So yeah, sort of moved in the middle of the beginning ish of the fourth grade. Moved to Florida, like kid from Puerto Rico. I grew up in the sort of rural areas of the island near mountains and a lot of dirt and trees and plants and everything you could think of. with like a farmer grandfather, and my other grandpa was a bus driver for the city's school system, and you know, uh, just grew up running around catching lizards and doing weird stuff, right? So like French horn was not even on the radar of existence there. But in the fifth grade at my elementary school in Kissimmee, there was an assembly for all the fifth graders where the one of the area middle schools came over to do like a pep rally with like a pep band. Uh, and I thought it was so awesome. So I saw kids playing band instruments. I saw things I recognized. I saw things I'd never seen before. And I just thought it was super cool. They were having a good time. We were loving it. And I thought, man, that might be really fun to do when I go to middle school. Because at the time, I was still trying to play baseball. But you know, for those who've seen me or know me, they know I'm vertically challenged. So the older I got, the harder it was to run to first base and beat the throw, and the harder it was to hit the throws coming from the bigger kids, the pitchers. So you know, I was kind of seeing my future in baseball coming to a limiting point. So anyway, I thought it was super cool. The pep band came over and played for the elementary school kids, and so I signed up to just like know more about it, and so I signed up for band, beginning band in the sixth grade, and showed up to the music room, and I was at Kissimmee Middle School, and my band teacher was Brian Sullivan, who you know well.
I do.
He's awesome. I think I've told him this before, but I think of him as like the Gandalf of band directors. He's just like this wizard who knows everything. So we had an instrument tryout day, and I tried everything. And actually, I went in there really wanting to play either trumpet or saxophone because those are two instruments that are common in like Latin American popular music, merengue bands, salsa bands. So those are things I knew, and I thought those were super cool. So I went and tried them, and I was pretty terrible at the saxophone and all the other woodwinds, and I was okay at the brass, but there was a lot of trumpet kids already signed up, and my band director mentioned he needed more horn players or tuba players. So I went back to those, and I actually really thought the tuba was going to be it for me. I actually wanted to play the tuba. So I went to the little station, and you know, they were like, do this and play boom and then play bum and bum bum. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like polka, like the movies and cartoons. Boom, boom, boom. Like, this is great. I'm so good at this. So we went to the sign up table, you know, with like the band instrument rental store or whatever. And the deal at the school was you can use a school-owned instrument as long as you buy a mouthpiece for it. So we went. I wanted to play tuba. I had signed up for tuba, and we went to the store and we said, "How much is a tuba mouthpiece?" And I think it was something like 60 something dollars at the time. And my mom was like, $60? I don't know. You know, it's maybe not. It's something a little blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, we'll go. So I went to the band director. I was like, I can't play the tuba mouthpiece. So I went back to the horn for like a second or third time, and this time I was playing around with it, and then the at our school, our teacher had a lot of the more advanced kids and the older kids guide the instrument tryouts station. So there was this eighth grade horn girl there, and she was like, hey, you know, if you go back and forth between the first finger, you can get some more notes in there. And so I was like, okay. And I sort of played around with that, and I discovered pretty quickly that you could play the notes, and I pieced together Mary Had a Little Lamb with it. Somehow the bing bum 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 bum. And I was just like, oh my God, I already know a song. I know a song on this instrument. I'm gonna be the coolest kid in band on, and I only know this song on this instrument, so I'm gonna play this instrument. So that's how I picked the horn. So fast forward, I get my instrument and we start learning notes, and I kind of got hooked pretty fast. I thought the horn was cool. I thought it was nice sounding. I thought it was unique. It was something I didn't know about. It's something my family didn't. None of them knew about it. So I was like, I'm gonna stick with this. It's pretty fun. Um, but pretty quickly into that first year in band, I started bugging my friends to teach me other instruments too, because I still wanted to play trumpet. So, I would get together with my friends and we would practice and teach trade instruments. And, some of us had that minty green disinfectant spray. And so that's kind of how I got into playing my instrument and everything else. And, like I mentioned, my band director is he exposed us to so much stuff. Every day we would come into the band room and there would be music playing, whether it was Maynard Ferguson or Rimsky Korsakov or whatever. It was all there, and so I thought it was awesome, and I wanted to know pretty much. I wanted to know as much as he did, and so I decided pretty early. I want to be as good as I can be at this, and I think he's pretty amazing. So I need to be like him. So I just set on my path to know how to play every instrument and how to read every clef and how to learn about jazz and this and that, and that sort of set me off on a path of exploring as much as I could. So by the eighth grade, I was playing trumpet uh, a little bit in like just for fun or in jazz band or something. I was playing drum set in the middle school jazz band. I was playing percussion in the concert band, and I was playing horn in like honor groups and trumpet and jazz honor groups. Then I got to high school. I played mellophone there. I did marching band there. I did 1 year, 1 semester of like indoor drum line where I played bass drum, and I started learning how to conduct and read scores and you know when eighth grade, I'm backtracking a little bit. When eighth grade came along, I was like the first kid to be like, I want to run a station for the instrument tryout. Like I want to help the kids. So it's um, it's something that's always driven me, like wanting to learn more so that I could share more, and that led me to major in music education in college. When I got to college, I went to the University of Central Florida in Orlando. It was close to home. I could live with my folks. I could eat amazing Puerto Rican food every day, sleep in my own bed. I did have to put up with my older brother. He and I shared a room for really until we both moved elsewhere. So that was cool. Nah, he's great. His name is Juan. For those who are curious, it's confusing, I know. Anyway, so I stayed at home. I commuted 45 minutes each way, and it was like the best thing ever. I thought it was great. I was in a place where like my what was expected of me was that I learn music, I study music, and I get better at music every day. So that was pretty great. And I kept playing other instruments. I did 1 semester of marching band at the university. I realized how different it was than high school. I expected it to be more like a drum and bugle corps, like serious marching band kids, but it wasn't. It was like a entertainment show band. You put out a great product, everybody loves it. It's exciting. There's a bunch of people on the field. It's a great culture. It's like, oh man, it was like a whole different thing. I was playing in a brass quintet. I was playing in the wind ensemble, in the orchestra. Just anything I could do, I wanted to do because I figured the more I knew, the just the better. The more you know, the better. The more effective educator I would be. Along with that, I always loved playing my instruments. I always loved playing music. So I decided to double major in performance because I figured, well, this way I have to take extra lessons and I have to play an extra recital and I have to learn more about my instrument. And the more I learn about playing my instrument, the better I'll be able to teach playing the instruments. To so I kept that up. Um, 3 years into college, I spent a summer at a horn workshop. The first like French horn thing or outside of school thing that I did was in Daytona, and it's what's now called the Daytona Horn Camps. At the time, it was like all the members of the American Horn Quartet were in Daytona, and it was like they were like They were the first horn group I heard, the first horn album I heard, and they like changed my life. I mean, the sounds and colors and timbres that you hear from that group are just insane, and it still is, even in their present incarnation. So I went, and it was awesome. And there, I met a lady by the name of Heather Johnson. She was married to one of the horn players. She's a horn player herself, and she was a band director in Florida for a long time. So that's where I started exploring. Hey, if I want to do this, but I still want to be able to like maybe get to a level where I could play professionally, like what's your advice? So that's where I started hearing advice, kept going. I met a horn student there who was like, "Hey, you should do some summer festivals." And I was like, "What are those? Where do I look for those?" He goes, "The internet." Like everything else, right? And I'm like, "Can you send me a list?" So he sends me a list of a bunch of places like Tanglewood, Music Academy of the West, Pacific Music Festival, the Aspen Music Festival, all this stuff. And I was like, "Okay, cool. I'll just start checking them out." And Aspen, for whatever reason, was one of the first ones I looked up. And I found the application and audition page. And I said, "Okay, this looks manageable. I could maybe try this." And so I put together a tape and I sent an application. Um, and I got in. And so my horn teacher at the university at the time was like, "You got to do this." And so we made it happen. You know, I applied for grants. I did this. I wrote a letter to Aspen because at first they offered me a tuition, a scholarship that would cover tuition, but I would still need to cover room and board, which was, you know, pretty pricey at the time. Um, and I'm sure it's gone up since. But in any case, I wrote back. They re-reviewed my file, and through a foundation, they covered the rest of it. So I got to go to the Aspen Music Festival fully covered. All I had to do was pay my way there. And I had no idea. I gotta admit, and all my teachers at Aspen, forgive me, but I had no idea who you were. I had no idea who Julie Lansman was, who, you know, was playing principal horn at the Met, or at the Met at the time, and she teaches at Juilliard. I didn't know who Eli Epstein was, who was a former second horn of Cleveland and now teaches the. No idea, right? I knew Aspen was in Colorado, and uh, because of the movie Dumb and Dumber. For those who aren't familiar, I love these like random movie quotes. But near the beginning of the
Wow.
movie, he's driving. He's the main character Jim Carrey plays is a limo driver who drives a who ends up being like the woman he falls in love with for the whole movie to the airport and asks her where she's going. She says Aspen, and he says, California, beautiful." So I knew it was Colorado. But anyway, so I go, and I mean, I was overwhelmed with everything that went on there. I had That was the first time I left school, traveled outside of Florida and or Puerto Rico, um, on a plane. Uh, Crazy, and it changed my life forever, man. I caught the playing bug. I came back to school wanting to like play harder, better, work harder, better, keep getting better, and like and striving for more. And eventually, I kept up with everything else. I taught all from the time I graduated high school through college, through now. I still teach in the schools. And so keeping the two things alive, eventually I ended up playing in a British style brass band through college, and that's how I ended up getting a call from the Dallas Brass for whatever reason. And the
Yeah.
reason was this: at the time, their horn player, who a lot of you know, and if you don't, you should. Chris Castellanos was in the Dallas Brass at the time, monster player, and he had the opportunity to go play with the Boston Brass, along with a dear friend of his who was also in the Dallas Brass with him for a short time, Jose Cibaja, the trumpet player. So he, you know, joined the Boston Brass, and Dallas Brass needed a horn player. So between Chris and I, there was a season of the Dallas Brass where they experimented. There was a time before where they didn't have a horn player, and they filled the horn book with they covered the horn book with another trombone player playing alto trombone and bass trumpet, and so they had a low brass section. Also, at the time, they had a tuba player who was a bass trombone player by nature. So Dallas Brass has been this like super versatile group that wants to cover as much as possible as well. So um, the more they can play with, the better. So they experimented, instead of with a trombone player, they hired a third trumpet player to cover the horn book, and they covered the horn book between flugelhorn and E flat alto horn, aka tenor horn in the brass band world. So they tried that out. They still didn't have a horn player, and they liked it for some stuff. But at the end of the season, they're like, man, it feels like we're missing the horn. So the founder and leader of the band, Mike Levine, was in a conversation with somebody from Orlando. His name's Chris Sharp. He's an arranger, a trombone player. He played in the brass band in Central Florida. He worked for Walt Disney World for a long time. Super talented, super experienced guy. Um, we had met once through the brass band, but he was writing arrangements for Dallas Brass, and they were in conversation. And I think something like this happened. Mike Levine said, "Man, we missed the horn, but we like the flugel for some stuff, and the alto horn's super cool for a lot of stuff, and that's not a common instrument in this country. And I think it's beautiful. And like, man, I wish we could find somebody who could do those things." So Chris Sharp said, "Well, hey, I know this kid in Orlando who does those things. Maybe you could check him out and see if he's good enough or a good fit." And that's how I ended up. That's how I ended up getting a call, getting asked if I would be interested in auditioning, and that's how I ended up in the band. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years.
Yeah. Wow. No, it's a lot of
A
stuff
lot.
to comprehend and to digest here. So fantastic. I have I can attest to a lot of things that we
Yeah,
talked about since we went to school together a little bit
I
at
did.
UCF. But yeah, so obviously I can speak to your family's cooking. That is something not to get away from for
Oh
sure,
man,
man.
it's the best out
But
there.
also interesting about going to some of these summer academies and music camps and stuff like that. Your experience obviously was a positive one. And not to say that Aspen is the only one, or even Tanglewood is the only one, but there's a lot of similar things popping up as well. So and obviously, even if you're not knowing the faculty, which obviously with Aspen, you're among the best of the best that are there, along with Tanglewood and some of these other places too. Um, can you say a little bit more about how beneficial? I mean, I know you took a lot from it, but can you speak to some specifics or some examples that you took home and you probably still practice today?
Oh,
Some of those tactics.
definitely. I mean, so with the Aspen Music Festival, um, for me, I mean, the Aspen Music Festival is huge. There's it's at the time it was still 9 weeks. The first summer I went in 2009, it was still 9 weeks long. There were five orchestras, student orchestras. Plus, there's all the guests that come through. I mean, every day there were performances. Every day there were master classes, events. Just something was going on every day. Not to mention your beautiful, beautiful Aspen during the summer, which is just like it's a dream for me. I love mountains and that environment. But for me, it was crazy because I came from what I didn't know was a somewhat smaller sort of community of music. Not small. I mean, Central Florida is pretty vibrant.
Yeah.
Always has been musical community, but my experiences to the time, I just didn't know how much out there, and what even was really possible, at least in the realm of like art music, orchestral music, and that sort of thing. So I went out there, and you know, the thing that makes Aspen pretty unique is in two of the festival orchestras, the principal chairs are held by the faculty members, and the faculty that comes to Aspen is world class. You know, it's like the best of the best go out there every summer. So the craziest thing was, yeah, the other part is like you mentioned, the students going out to these festivals are insanely talented. So honestly, I felt like I had no business there. I was overwhelmed. I'm like, what is a kid from Kissimmee doing out here? I go to UCF, I'm going to be a band director. Like, these are kids who, some of them had jobs already. You know, there were young professionals there already. Just, I heard string playing like I never heard. I mean, I heard it was just it blew my mind. Literally, every day I was in shock. But I mean, it was also it was a shock. Everything was a shock for me. You know, my first week, we did these placement auditions, and I went in and played, and you know, I did the best I could, and I'm like, oh, I'm probably gonna, you know, play assistant 10th horn the whole summer. Um, and I got assigned to the festival orchestra for the first week, which is the first big student concert. And the piece was Mahler 5. Dave Zinman, the music director at the time, was conducting, and it was crazy. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like, this is good. I love this piece. I know this piece. I'm excited to go play. Um, and I sat in the section, and I was the youngest kid in the section by a few years. I was 20. The next youngest was 23, I think. And she was a fellow. And at the time, she was playing with the San Antonio Symphony. And later that fall, she became the second horn of the Montreal Symphony. Her name's Catherine Turner. And she was just the beastiest beast. And she sat right to my left, so I got her belt. But everyone else around me was either a grad student. No, they were all grad students, actually, now that I think about it. Everybody was a grad student. I was an undergrad. And they had all either studied with the teacher, either at Aspen or at McGill University in Montreal. And the teacher was John Zerbel. He was playing first horn. John Zerbel was longtime solo horn in Montreal Symphony. So, and again, Mr. Zerbel, I don't know that you would hear this, but I didn't know who you were. I'm sorry. But I'm sure glad I sat in that section. So we sat in rows. I sat behind him, his second horn. To my left, I had Catherine's bell. And we sat down, and I didn't know what would happen. And we started rehearsal in the first movement. And after the trumpet solo, the first forte and unison entrance for the horns was, it literally took my breath. I always describe it as this like of a wall of sound that came at me, right? So like I had never heard horn playing like that in person. I had never experienced just like the extreme range of dynamics, color. I mean, every phrase people around me were playing was thoughtful. Every like nothing. Oh man, I was just like hanging on for dear life, and you know, so that was like the first time that I realized how much more I had to learn, what it's possible, what's possible, what a really, really like great orchestra. Like we had never met, right? A bunch of people, bunch of strangers. I'm sure people knew each other, but we get together on day one, and to me, it was the best thing I had ever heard to that point, you know. So, I mean, it was just crazy, and so I learned, wow, this is how it's done. So this is how you play in an orchestra. So this is how you function when you got 3 rehearsals and then you play Mahler. So this is okay, got it. And then in my lessons, I was asking questions like, man, how do you, you know, you play solo horn every week and blah blah blah, and, picking everybody's brains. So I just, you know, I just try to soak up as much as I could, and it just made me so excited about playing music at a higher level that it kind of shifted my gears from um, wanting to be a band director to like, man, let me see how far I can take the playing thing go. So, and for me, Aspen was the, the first one and the biggest one. I feel like oftentimes the first experiences that are influential, those are the ones that stick with you the most. So, and for me, it's the same thing. The
Yeah.
first time I played a horn, I thought it was cool. The first time I could identify my instrument in a recording changed my mind. The first time I understood what sounds like a major chord, that it was a major chord and why. Like when I knew, I'm like, "Bleh." The first time I understood how to read rhythms that I knew that I grew up listening to changed my life. My first season with the Dallas Brass changed my everything. My first day in college, wind ensemble changed my life. Everything. So with Aspen, I was just exposed to so much, so many world class artists, conductors, teachers, instrumentalists. It just and other young, hardworking, talented players. Like I was just inspired constantly.
Yeah.
So I mean that's the biggest takeaway. And the next summer I went to the Music Academy of the West in California. Some people were like, "Oh, Music Academy's dope. You gotta go. It's awesome." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll go." It was great. I overlapped with one of my Aspen teachers, Eli Epstein, there, so that was awesome. I wanted to keep learning from people that I admired already, and that was cool. And Music Academy is just one. It's one big orchestra, and it's all students. So at the time, I'm like, okay, it's been really great learning from the pros. I wonder what it's like to just students. Like, let's go see what this is like. Also, a mind blowing experience there. A lot of the players that I went to these festivals with have big jobs now from big orchestras, and it's just so inspiring. So
Yeah.
those were my,
And
my
that's,
biggest takeaways were those. I learned from the pros. I experienced them in there, like in the orchestra, and yeah, I just that's the biggest one.
no, that's great. And I think a lot of what you said is probably still is not probably is very much still true today about your inspiration and how uh, you're still having that energy and that feeling of as if like, oh, this is like the first time you've heard this or that. And probably more so in terms of education and today's, we'll get more into this a little bit later, but in conducting and stuff like that as well. So um, we have a few shout outs that I'm kind of gonna acknowledge at the moment. Of course, there's a lot of people that just saying, hey, how's it going? So our low brass product specialist is just saying, hey, Declan Lynch, you probably know.
Declan.
Yeah. Lori Orr, who's our a manager at the showroom up in New York, she's saying hello. She has a question for you too, and I'll get to hers as well because it's very important for us to discuss some of that stuff. Jacob Weston is asking some, not asking questions, just shout out and wanting to hear some stories, which
Yeah,
hopefully
of
you
course.
will and have already so far. Holly McKay is also tuning in. David Deschler is asking some fun questions.
David
Wants to know
Deschler.
who is trumpet one, me or Garrett Klein?
Is David related? Is David Deschler related to Buddy Deschler? I don't know David Deschler.
I believe
I
believe
I
they are one
I
and the
can't
same.
I can't answer that one. That's I'm out. I abstain my vote.
Yeah.
I'm trumpet one.
And I don't know if you noticed. Yeah, nice. I don't know if you noticed this at all, but you were shouting out to Chris Castellanos and a lot of
Oh,
the
Chris.
really great players that came before you with the Dallas Brass, and have already now been are now colleagues with you
Yeah.
throughout the last 10 or 20 years. But he's saying what's up, and so anyway, some questions that have come through. Lori Orr has asked us a little bit of questions about the Dallas Brass and your experience there, and it was on my list of things to ask as well. So I'll dive right in. a lot of people know Dallas Brass as being like this touring group throughout, and so there are two questions, this is a two-parter, but tell us some of your experiences with being on the road in Dallas Brass, and also like what a typical schedule looks like when you were doing it on the road and stuff like that.
Sure. So I'll start by by saying something that I found to be mostly true. Um, be, when I got offered the gig, I was seeking, wisdom from whatever former members or people that lived in that realm or knew Dallas Brass that I as many people as I could find. So I was lucky that in Orlando I was able to talk to people who have known the Dallas Brass and have known Mike for decades, since the early days of the band, including somebody who toured with the band and covered the horn book on trombone. Um, and one of the things that stuck with me and still does that I heard before joining the band, I said, "Look, what do I need to do? What should I do?" Somebody said, just know that playing with this band, playing in a brass group, and in the Dallas Brass in particular, because Dallas Brass has a drummer, so it's plus we don't just play like brass music, or we play a huge variety, including commercial styles, big band, and funk and stuff like that. So he said, "This will be the hardest playing you ever do. So take care of yourself." And I said, "Okay, sure." And I didn't know better, and for the most part, it really was the hardest playing we ever do, because for starters, you're the horn player in a brass quintet, which means you're already at a disadvantage. I mean, playing the horn's already a disadvantage with the bell pointing the wrong way, and but then you got two trumpets, a trombone, and like a drummer and a tuba player, who are all gonna cover you unless you power up and step up. So that was already hard because I was still learning how to become a more efficient player, so that things got easier. And playing loud was never, pun intended, was never my forte. It was like a lot of effort for me. And when I started going to the festivals, I started and coming back and working with my teacher, I started taking the playing more seriously. So we started diving into those problems more. But when I got offered the job, I was 21 and still in school, still working on my bachelor's degree. So I was not even. I'm not done. I'm never gonna be done, but I was definitely not even close to being done training and learning then. So, so that's one disadvantage. But then the other thing is, like, the program is 2 hours. The concert is 2 hours. On top of that, I was changing between horns, which is beating up my face in different ways. So it was, I had to learn how to manage my chops and my playing better. So that was the first thing coming into the brass group. Even though I had played in a brass quintet at the university for a handful of years, I had never done playing like this, really. I did some in like jazz bands and stuff, but at the time I wasn't doing it. So um, that forced me to learn and keep finding the ways to get better for the sake of like my health, my playing health, right? So that was that. Being on the road again, I really, I think I just was so lucky I didn't really know better. So everything was amazing to me. You know, I slept 3 hours. Who cares? Let's go. Oh, we got three concerts today. Whatever. Like, not that that ever happened. Three full concerts, but that's kind of what the introduction was. You just get dumped in and you go. So my first tour with the Dallas Brass, we had a few. There were a few new members in the band, so we went out. Um, the tour was in the Pacific Coast, the Northwest. So we were in Washington State, off the coast, in Orcas Island, one of the San Juan Islands. Gorgeous place. And we sat there and we set up shop and we had 3 days of rehearsal, and these were intense. I mean, it was like 12-hour days, 3 hours in the morning, 2 hour break, 3 hours break, couple more hours, like go, 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 go. Because the Dallas Brass puts together a show. It's not just come in, sit down and play and like you're good. We memorized the book. We had to learn the staging. We had to learn the pacing of narration in the show. We had to learn. There's theater elements. There's lighting. There's some comedic elements involved. There's spontaneity built in. I had to learn what to do and not to do. Look at the narrator here as if it's the first time you're hearing this, even though it's the 10,000th time you're hearing this. Don't close your eyes during the hard section of the William Tell Overture. Look at your peers, look at your colleagues on stage, because when people are looking at you, they're looking for something to go along with your music. So it was a lot of like, oh wow, I need to be aware of a bunch of stuff. So thankfully, some experiences primed me to that. Marching band obviously has a huge visual element, a memorization element, all that stuff. And then, I got the chance to play some theme park gigs for the holidays in Orlando, and that's showmanship 100%. So I had some exposure to it, but never for that much, time. So it actually took a lot of mental practice. I had to play the show in my mind, and I would write notes and study, and so 3 rehearsal days, and it was intense. And our first performance was my first run through of the show, and it was the most exciting thing. Like, we ran out of time. We did a bunch of stuff, photo shoots and things and like that, and eventually we didn't have time to do like a practice run. So the boss was like, "All right, guys, we got a performance tonight. So, there's your practice run." And I'm just like, "Whoo! Here we go. Yes, I am ready." And then the next day we got the video, and he sat down with all of us in the video. He's like, "Okay, let's go over all of this." So that's kind of what joining the group was like. You have to learn a lot more than playing. On top of that, managing the playing, is intense. So I learned that how much I can do in my warm up or routine, what I can and can't practice on the road, all that stuff. And we could talk about that more later if we have time and if you want. But the typical day once we got rolling, let's say it's an average tour, and let's say it's 1 week. Let's say it's 7 days. Okay, we fly in 1 or 2 days before the first concert of the trip, and we have a rehearsal day the day before to touch up, tweak, tighten up, whatever the case may be. Then a normal concert day is a residency somewhere. Dallas Brass is like hugely devoted to being in the schools, in the public schools, education, middle schools and high schools and stuff, and working with band kids everywhere, which for me, again, perfect. I was music ed and performance, so it literally was the best of both worlds. So we would wake up 7 or 8 in the morning, maybe drive to the venue if we were there. On the first one, we're already there. The next ones we have to drive to. So we get to the venue, we warm up, we set up, we do a clinic with all the kids at a school, or even if we're at a performing arts venue, we'll still invite area schools to come and be involved. So we do a clinic. The clinic's about an hour, 15 minutes. It's kind of usually a general clinic geared towards getting everybody excited about band, because the truth is a lot of kids in band are they're all there for different reasons. Some of them take it really seriously, like we did. Others are just there, and everything in between, right? So we want to get to a point where we can all agree on certain things. We want them to know we're human beings. We're not these like weird artistes or anything. We're just a bunch of people who happen to play instruments. And so we play for them, we talk to them, we share practice tips, we share stories, we ask questions. That's the first part of the day. Then maybe we do lunch, and then usually we'll have a break, uh, where some of the usually the band leader Mike will stay and have a rehearsal with a student group that will perform with us, and then we have a choice to go nap or drink coffee or run errands or stay and help. So I would say at least half the time I hung out and helped, and I love teaching. I love working with students. So then we get a break, then we get dinner an hour and a half before the concert, and then we play the concert. Then after the concert, 2 hours and then an intermission later, we go out of the hall to the lobby or wherever people exit, and we greet everyone and bid them adieu. We chat with the kids, we sign posters, we take pictures, we do whatever the audience has. Then we have to load out, we have to go home. Often we make a stop before going home for a refreshment or maybe a late night meal or something, and we sleep and we do it all over. And that's kind of what it's like. And then sometimes the days are lighter. Say we're playing at a for a concert association, and it's just us that day. There's no students. Then it's a little better because we may not have to do a clinic, or so sometimes we can sleep in. Sometimes it's like we got to the hotel at midnight and we got to get up at 6 because we got to drive 3 hours and do a clinic, and but there's usually a decent balance. That the really really intensely busy packed days are still less than the majority.
Yeah.
So, but the average day is wake up, do a clinic, take a break, maybe stay and help out with a rehearsal, eat dinner, play a concert, lather, rinse, repeat.
Yeah, I think that's really kind of important to note, because we only see as I think a majority of us will see the concert as being like, oh, this is what Dallas Brass or all these touring brass groups do, is just go and tour and have fun and play music. When a lot of, at least what Dallas Brass is really into, is the educational part of it, and a majority of um, what I'd like to think is the majority of that stuff is you in front of kids and really influencing them to either appreciate or play music in their future or now, depending on
Yeah,
how old they are. Yeah.
I mean, we just want them to enjoy the, I mean, the opportunity they have. I mean, you know, it, I don't think there was in my town in Puerto Rico. I doubt there was a band in the school. There were maybe
Yeah.
municipal bands in other towns or whatever, but it wasn't a thing. And in many other countries, it's not a thing. You have to go outside of school. So, in America, in the United States, we have public school band, and that's really great. Choir, orchestra, whatever. So we just want them to love their experience and to know that band can be really awesome, and music can be really awesome. That's what we
Yeah.
want for them.
Yeah.
Half the time. Go ahead. I was gonna
There's
say
another
half the time
question.
we express to them that maybe their band directors aren't that crazy after all. They things like that.
Most are not, actually. Yeah. So it's fantastic. I missed a not necessarily missed a comment, but Kevin Kramer is we're joined
Kevin, oh man,
listening. So yeah, we both know him from our days in the brass band of Central Florida, of course, and he was asking a question as well, and also shouting out, just saying great to see us both. And also, his question has everything to do with something you mentioned of switching, going back and forth between
oh yeah,
a few instruments, and how you were able to overcome some of those challenges of playing horn versus playing alto or tenor horn, and then also flugelhorn on the road on DB's touring schedule. So maybe some challenges that you've faced, and
yeah.
some ways you've overcome those issues. Yeah.
Sure. So I'll try to be succinct. The biggest challenge that I found was that no matter what I did or what order I went in, playing anything other than the horn, the French horn, affected my horn playing to a point. It you know it's it was easy in some ways to switch, to the others. Um, but coming back to the horn was always tricky. And for years, I just did it the way I always did it, and powered through and didn't know better. And I thought, oh, well, this I just maybe I'm just tired. That's normal. And I just really didn't become aware of whatever physical differences there were. So I think again I was lucky in that because I didn't really know or think it was a thing, I played and the default setting even now still is what is it supposed to sound like? Try to get that to come out of the horn, and I luckily I was able to, do some things well enough to survive and make decent sounds and not completely wreck my face. But it was hard. It would beat me up. The tenor horn mouthpiece is a lot bigger, so it was using different muscles, and then the trumpet or flugelhorn physics, made it feel that like there was more pressure on my top lip than I was used to on the horn. On the horn I could play a little more downstream and have, you know, and then on the trumpet it was like, well, it doesn't sound good that way. So I was doing whatever to get the best sound I could and not caring about anything else. So, but then I started going, this is messing with my horn playing. I'm not able to sound as good as I want to when I come back. Why? Why is that? So I start going back in my brain of all of the things I've learned and heard about different circumstances. Song and wind, this and that. Embouchures are different. Um, you know, I started hearing, I don't recommend this. I started hearing one of my teachers. It was like, I'm telling you, it's messing with your playing. And I was like, I don't know. And it was all spinning in my head. So the biggest differences are are obviously, here on the lips, and it makes total sense because the physics of the instruments are different. They're going to require the lips to respond differently and the muscles to work differently. So, but the one thing that isn't different is how you approach the tone production. And what we all learned is air first. Take air in, blow it through, let the lips vibrate. So I started doing that more. And I mostly just practice horn. That's like, I don't really practice the other stuff unless I need to dust it off or learn a new chart or something. Because for whatever reason, in comparison, and I hope this doesn't come across as like super arrogant, but in comparison to the French horn, it's just easier. Okay, the partials might as well be worlds apart for me, So, but also just like I think the charts I had to play were just more manageable than my horn charts. So, I started really tweaking my mechanics on the horn and becoming more efficient. Air first, air first. Once I did that, I started really noticing the physical differences. So without getting too much into it, I think the just the age old, the golden mantra or whatever you want to call it, of uh, Mr. Jacobs, Song and Wind. Have the song in your mind, have the sound in your mind, blow the air through, and then let the lips find the way. That's the best way I was able to manage the other stuff. And then I found some other tips and tricks that would help bring things back. Some exercises, some mouthpiece work, this and that. But those were the biggest ones. Playing flugelhorn in a rehearsal for an hour was kind of ruining my horn playing for the next 2 hours. So I learned to manage, take breaks, when to go full out, when not to, stuff like that. But, as long as your air is true, your air is honest, your concept is strong, and you trust that the instrument and the body will take care of it for you, and you just let it be, the better off you'll be. The more you try to make them physically the same, the more issues you'll run into. It's just it to me it's logic. If the mouthpiece is a different shape, size, depth, then logic tells me that my lips are going to have to vibrate differently and they're going to feel different. So trying to force it in this, trying to put a, what is it, a square peg in a round hole. That
That's it.
doesn't
Yeah.
work. That doesn't work. So, but again, the commonalities are just the approach. I got the sound. I got my air. My air can never be bad,
Yeah.
and then I'm safe.
No, I'd agree with everything you said. I take a slightly different approach, as you know. I don't think many know. But I also play. I'm a trumpet player by trade, of course. But I also learned horn about 10 years ago, and then also played in the brass band on tenor horn for a good while, and still do to a point. But my expectation, or I agree with everything you said. It's more of a mindset than anything. But for me to always, and I never play. I should preface everything I'm about to say with I never play um, them back to back in the same
Mm-hmm.
setting, right? So I don't think it's very rare that that's ever happened on stage or like that for like you do almost on a regular basis, right? But for me, I've always felt like for me to be as comfortable as I need to be, I've always had to spend almost equal amounts of time with everything that I needed to perform on. So
A lot of
um,
people are like that.
it just means bumping up the amount of time that I spend on something that's unforeign to me, which is very different from your approach in some ways, shapes, or form. But I don't change the way like you said, I don't change the way I approach it. It's the same,
Mm-hmm.
just sound first concept. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, with me in the book I had to play in the Dallas Brass, it's sometimes I was switching back and forth within a few bars, and there's no time to to fret. You just do it. I had a teacher, actually your teacher, your trumpet teacher, John Almeida. He once said to me, I don't remember what I asked him, but it had to do with like mouthpieces or something. He goes, I just put it in my horn and blow. That's
Perfect.
That's it. And so those words really help me. It's like, well, what? Da 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 da. And you can obsess and micromanage and the way my brain is wired, micromanaging is a good way for me to worry about the wrong things.
It's true.
So I just pick it up and blow, and I hope
Um,
for the best. To be honest.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we all can hope and dream and pray for sure. There's a few last questions I wanted
Yeah.
to mention, and then
I'm sorry we didn't get to everything.
no, I think this is great. Holly McCoy actually asked a question, and I hope I'm pronouncing a lot of this stuff correctly. So bear with me, but. Um, He says that you performed for many music educator conferences and wanted to ask what your takeaways would be when performing and working with teachers and colleagues.
I mean, what I've what okay. Everybody's on the same boat is what I want to say, and we've heard it all through our training that we should all be students of the craft, lifelong learners, and educators are, in my opinion, some of the most exemplary learners. Um, they're just constantly searching for ways to improve, revamp, innovate, tweak, just and it's all. And I'm the same way. I'm wired this way. And people don't believe me when I say it, but in my mind, I'm an educator first. The only reason I want to learn as much as I want to learn and get as good as I can be is so that I can help others be that, so that I can share it too. So, man, like playing for a room full of educators, you're not gonna have a better audience than that
Yeah,
ever. They're all musicians. They spend their days teaching the kids, like and then we get put in this environment for a few days where we can really focus and reap the benefits of everything we love away away from the job. And then it's like we can be audience members, we can be musicians, we can be colleagues, we can be friends, we can be, I mean, it's awesome. So playing for a room full of music educators, they get it, and they know what sorry, before I keep going, the other thing I want to say is we all started as students, young student players. So for me, it's like the ultimate it's like the ultimate display of appreciation if you think about it. You know, for me as a kid, I wanted to be like my band director. I still do. Mr. Sullivan, you'll always be Mr. Sullivan to me. Um, and so when you grow up and you're like, I'm really good now. Like check this out. And it's not to be like it's about me, but it's like you helped me become that. So I feel like and you know, for me as an audience member, when I when I saw Dallas Brass for the first time, when I watched the Boston Brass or whoever it is performing, or I watch my friends, I'm just like, I'm just there to appreciate their work. I'm just there to soak up the music and enjoy. And I would imagine that music educators go out to just have a good time. You know, they're just being people. Is what I found the most, right? A lot of them are there to, yeah, learn as much, and they're being dutiful and all that stuff. But my experiences have been these people just want to hang out with other musicians
Hmm.
and getting a chance to be with non-teachers. It's nice. You know, it's nice to hang out with people who don't do exactly what you do, because then oftentimes all you can talk about is that, and
Hmm.
maybe you don't want to talk about that. Maybe you want to go up to a player and say, look, how do I help my kids play louder? You know, how do I do that? And they'll be like, well, do this. You know, and it took a minute or a few, as opposed to, you know, hours of research or whatever, going into a method and interpreting. And sometimes it's just, you know, I think these are all speculations. I've actually, Holly, good question. I've actually never asked anyone. Maybe we should chat and you could tell me what it's like from your end. But that's what I think. I just think music educators just want to just I don't know. They just want to be around it. They want to hang out. They want to learn from or chat with or share stories with. And at the end of the day, what they want, I'm convinced what they want most of all is to have something that they're gonna bring back to their kids to help it get through to them better.
Yeah.
So you know, if I had a horn student and I said, "Look, I got this straight from the source. So and so told me this," and they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "No, look, here's I was there. I was at this conference. I talked to Warren Coos, and he explained to me the dimensions of the instruments. You can't lie with science, or you can't argue with science, or I don't know. Maybe that's a bad example, but
No,
um, I think I think that's what they're trying to get. I really don't. Man, you got me. I was confident at
I
first, and then I'm like, hmm.
I think how I interpret certain things is as a perspective, right? So they're looking at a different perception that you can take and they can hold on to and create their own story from to explain and to pass on to their students for sure. So yeah, a different perception. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, I imagine, because when I go, I just think it's cool to see pretty much grown up band kids just
Yeah.
playing their horns, sounding great, and like showing me a good time. That's awesome. You
Yeah.
know, if I spend most of my time with my students, I feel like a lot of educators can feel isolated, and I mean, I've heard a lot of them say this, I spend my days, I listened to beginners for 10 hours yesterday, and so this is just so nice. And so it's many different reasons, but at the essence, I think they're there to hear something that they could take back with them to offer their students.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm gonna close out our time
Sure.
together. This has been really great. What I will give you a chance to kind of talk about is just what you're up to today, how people can find you either on the internet or otherwise, and
Yeah.
if people needed to connect with you and ask you questions about any of the details in which we've already talked about today, or maybe even expand upon that. But yeah, tell us what you're up to and how people can find you.
Yeah. So, um, what I'm up to. After this, I'm gonna eat lunch, hopefully with my wife, who's in the other room, being as quiet as possible. No, she's there. We're gonna eat. I'm gonna practice some horn. I'm gonna teach a horn lesson later. Um, and then I got some recording projects that I'm doing with some friends. I got a brass band project with the Fountain City Brass Band here in Kansas City that I got to get to this weekend. I'm working on a really exciting horn project with a good friend of mine, Young Kim. He's based in Denver. He's a former member of the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, and we're working on something together. I got a list of things I want to do. I love transcribing, doing jazz transcriptions and learning jazz solos. So I got a list of that I want to get to. Um, yeah, I'm online. You can find me on Facebook, uh, on Instagram. You can email me. You can find my email on my Facebook page, or you could or I'll just give it to you, Juan-Berrios at hotmail.com. It's my old, like, senior year high school professional email with my name, my first and last name. It's still the account I use the most. But yeah, that's what I'm up to. And I mean, normally in the summer, I'd be up to a lot more. But, given the circumstances, I know everyone's feeling the effects of it, all the cancellations. But, normally I would have, I was planning on maybe doing a conducting workshop this summer. So for those of you who don't know, I'm back in school. I'm in grad school in Kansas City. I'm working on a wind conducting degree at the University of Missouri Kansas City Conservatory. It's really amazing. Something I wanted to do forever. So I'm doing it. I'm learning a lot. So I wanted to do some workshops. I would have taught at a brass festival. I teach at the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. That happens every July. This summer it was, of course, canceled, but keep an eye out for things that may come out from the faculty members on social media. And for next summer, it's a week of all brass, everything, chamber music based. And, every day of the week is a different featured guest artist. It's getting really, really world-class people out there. It's a really good time. And yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back home to Florida soon, see my folks, see my family, my wife's family, eat some Puerto Rican food again, because I cook some, but it's never as good. But that's what I'm up to. I'm just practicing, trying to get better every day, hanging out with my wife. It's great. Watching TV, Netflix, like everyone else, drinking coffee. I have a weird sleep schedule. It's I'm kind of I'm just a human being. So
Yeah.
that's I'm not up to as much as I'd like to be, but it's okay.
No, that's okay
It's all good.
for nowadays, for
Yeah.
sure. So,
Father, I
yeah.
love these things. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry to talk so much and ramble, but you know,
No, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much, Juan. We will be watching this over and over again, I'm sure. And fantastic insights into what it is like on the road, and with the
yeah,
Dallas Brass, as well as and we wish you all the luck in the world for your future endeavors with conducting and with education, and horn playing. Of course, we wish to see you very soon. Look forward to everything that happens with the Fred Brass Institute as well for next year. So keep an eye out for that. If you haven't, I'm gonna boost you a little bit here, but if you haven't checked out Juan's Facebook page, I encourage you to do so. He's doing some really cool transcriptions that I don't think I've heard on horn before, and Juan does a really great job. So check out his Facebook page. You'll find a bunch of stuff and great content there. And yeah, so the next one of these podcasts are webcasts as part of the Rhapsody Live program, and our Together at Home program as well. Will be next Thursday, and it'll be hosted by our low brass product specialist, Declan Lynch. He will be talking about BNS tubas, so you'll find that he'll have some really great things to discuss with who we call Mr. P, Mr. Dan Parentoni. And so that'll be a really great in-depth discussion on the BNS brand, and from someone who has really been the instrumental person to put them on the map in the United States. So look forward to that discussion next Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and that will be on our Buffet Crampon New York showroom Facebook page. So starting next week, we'll be on one of those pages, different from how we've been doing in the past. So thank you so much, Juan, and we will see you all next week.